Jiwan Park adjusted her formal diplomatic robes as she walked through the marble halls of the Galactic Council building. After 30 years as Earth's ambassador, she knew these corridors better than her own home. The other species barely noticed her anymore. To them, she was just another human, useful, reliable, but not worth real attention. The council chamber buzzed with different alien voices. 12 species sat around the massive circular table, each representing billions of lives across the galaxy. Humans had been part of this group for 150 years, but Jiwan often felt like they were still waiting to be truly accepted. "The meeting will now begin," announced Speaker Zethmoran, his blue skin shimmering under the chamber lights. The Altarian Empire had held the speaker position for decades. His forearms gestured dramatically as he spoke. "Today, we discuss the Kepler sector mining rights." Jiwan straightened in her chair. The Kepler sector was important to humanity. Human miners had discovered the rare elements there. Human engineers had built the extraction facilities. Human workers had died in the dangerous asteroid fields to make those mines profitable. "The Vorthak hegemony has submitted a proposal," Zethmoran continued. A massive insect-like creature clicked its mandibles as it stood. General Krexthor of the Vorthaks towered over the table, his black carapace gleaming. "The council needs funding for military expansion," Krexthor buzzed through his translator. "The humans will transfer their Kepler sector operations to the hegemony. We will manage these resources more efficiently." Jiwan felt her jaw tighten. More efficiently meant the Vorthaks would strip mine everything and leave dead rocks behind. They had done it before on other worlds. "Ambassador Park," Zethmoran said without looking at her. "Surely humanity understands the greater good requires sacrifice." Jiwan stood slowly. Around the table, alien eyes turned toward her with barely hidden impatience. They expected her to bow her head and agree like humans always did. "The Human Federation respectfully declines," she said calmly. The chamber fell silent. Several alien faces showed surprise. The bat-like Xerillian representative actually dropped her datapad. "Declines?" Zethmoran's voice carried disbelief. "This is not a request, Ambassador. This is a council decision." "Then the council decided without consulting one of its members," Jiwan replied. "The Kepler sector belongs to humanity. We developed it. We maintain it. We will keep it." General Krexthor's mandibles clicked angrily. "Your species exists to serve the greater galactic community. Your objections are irrelevant." Those words hit Jiwan like a physical blow. Serve. That's how they saw humanity. Not as equals, but as servants. Useful tools to be used and discarded. "Furthermore," Zethmoran continued, "the Council has voted on another matter. The neutral Cathera system will be brought into the Council's protection. Humanity will provide transport, supply lines, and security forces for this operation." Jiwan's blood ran cold. The Cathera system was home to a peaceful species that wanted nothing to do with galactic politics. This wasn't protection, it was invasion. And they expected humans to pay for it with their ships and their lives. "The vote was 11-1, Zethmoran added with satisfaction. "The matter is settled, 11-1. They hadn't even pretended to consider humanity's position. They had voted to use human resources for their war, and humanity's voice meant nothing. Jiwan looked around the table at faces she had worked with for decades. Some avoided her eyes. Others watched with cold calculation. Not one showed sympathy or understanding. After 150 years of faithful service, this was what humanity meant to them. Nothing. She reached into her robes and pulled out a small device. Her fingers found the activation switch. The Human Federation formally withdraws from all council agreements effective immediately, she said clearly. The silence that followed was deafening. Ambassador Park, Zethmoran began. Surely you don't mean, I mean exactly what I said. Jiwan pressed the device. Across the galaxy, every human ship, station, and colony would receive the same message within hours. All human personnel are hereby ordered to cease council operations and return. To human space. She turned and walked toward the chamber doors. Behind her, voices erupted in a dozen alien languages. "This is temporary madness," shouted someone. "Humans cannot survive without the council," called another. Jiwan paused at the doorway and looked. "Poxy, we survived for thousands of years before we met you. We'll manage." The doors closed behind her with a soft hiss. In her private quarters, Jiwan activated her secure communicator. Minho Kim's face appeared on the screen. As Director of Human Interstellar Commerce, he controlled humanity's vast trade network. "It's done," she said simply. Minho nodded grimly. "All ships are receiving the recall order now. Taiyang has already begun defensive preparations." Taiyang Choi commanded humanity's colonial defense force. Most aliens thought it was just a small security service. They were wrong about many things. "How long do we have?" Jiwan asked. "Captain Nara is overseeing the evacuation of Hydro Station. She estimates 6 days to complete withdrawal from critical facilities, 2 weeks for full recall. Hydro Station processed 40% of the galaxy's medical supplies. Its loss would hurt." "Good," Jiwan said. "And the Deep Dark protocols?" "Ready for implementation. All human installations have been prepared for this day." Jiwan allowed herself a small smile. The aliens thought this was a sudden decision made in anger. They had no idea humanity had been planning this withdrawal for decades. "Send the message to all colony worlds," she ordered. "Operation Homecoming is now active." As Minho's image faded, Jiwan looked out her window at Nexus Prime's glittering cityscape. Ships from dozens of species filled the sky, carrying trade goods and passengers across the galaxy. Most of those ships depended on human logistics networks to function. Soon, they would understand what humanity really meant to their civilization. Her communicator chimed. The first responses were already coming in from council members, demanding explanations, offering negotiations, making threats. Jiwan ignored them all. Outside her window, she could see human ships beginning to leave Nexus Prime's orbital platforms. Transport vessels, medical ships, cargo haulers, all heading home. The silence was beginning, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. Captain Nara Lee stood on the bridge of the cargo ship New Sol and watched her crew work with quiet efficiency. Around them, Hydro Station hummed with desperate activity as humans evacuated one of the galaxy's most important facilities. "Medical. Storage Bay 7 is clear," reported her first officer. "All vaccine production equipment has been loaded." Nara nodded, checking her data pad. Hydro Station didn't just process medical supplies, it created them. The station's labs produced treatments for diseases that affected 23 different alien species. Without these medicines, entire populations would face plague and death. The aliens still didn't understand what they had lost. "Captain," her communications officer called out, "we're getting emergency transmissions from the Zephyrian homeworld. They're asking about their next medicine shipment." The Zephyrians were a peaceful species with weak immune systems. Human-created. Vaccines kept their entire civilization alive. Nara had personally delivered those shipments for 15 years. "Send them our standard withdrawal message," she said quietly. "All council medical contracts are terminated." She hated doing it. Zephyrians had always treated humans with respect, but the withdrawal had to be complete or it wouldn't work. On Nexus Prime, Director Minho Kim sat in his office surrounded by glowing displays, showing ship movements across the galaxy. Each dot represented a human vessel responding to the recall order. There were more than anyone realized. "Sir," his assistant said, "the Mollusk Federation is demanding an explanation for the cargo delays in Sector 7. Minho pulled up the sector map. Sector 7 contained the mollusk hive worlds, massive colonies that housed billions of creatures in underground cities. They depended entirely on food imports because their worlds couldn't support their enormous populations. Human ships carried 60% of those food supplies. "How long before they face shortages?" Minho asked. 2 weeks, sir. Maybe 3 if they ration carefully." Minho felt sick, but he pushed the feeling away. The mollusks had voted to steal human mining rights and use human lives for their wars. They had made their choice. His communicator buzzed. Captain Nara's face appeared on the screen. Hydro station evacuation is complete, she reported. All medical production has ceased. The station is being left in automated shutdown mode. Understood. What about the staff? 67 human researchers and technicians are coming home. The alien staff? Nara paused. They're trying to restart production without us. They don't understand how any of it works. Minho wasn't surprised. Humans had built the medical facilities, designed the production processes, and trained the staff. The aliens had provided funding and raw materials, thinking that made them equal partners. Sir? Another aide interrupted. We're getting reports of system failures across the quantum communication network. The quantum network allowed instant communication across the galaxy. Every species used it for trade, diplomacy, and emergency coordination. What they didn't know was that humans had built the entire system from scratch. Minho pulled up the network. Status display. Red warning lights blinked across dozens of sectors as human engineers abandoned their posts. Estimated time until complete network failure? He asked. 3 weeks, sir. Maybe less. The automated systems aren't designed for long-term operation without human maintenance. Back on Nexus Prime, Ambassador Jiwan sat in an emergency council session. The chamber that had been so confident yesterday now buzzed with panic and anger. This is madness, shouted the Crystech representative. Her crystalline body sparkled with agitation. The climate systems on our cities are failing. Human engineers maintained those systems for decades. My people are dying, cried the Zephyrian delegate. We need those medicines. You cannot simply abandon your obligations. Speaker Zeth Moran's blue skin had turned a darker shade, a sign of stress in his species. Ambassador Park, this has gone far enough. Name your price. What do humans want? Jiwan stood slowly. The chamber fell silent. We want nothing from you, she said calmly. You have made it clear that humans exist only to serve your needs. We accept that assessment. We will serve our own needs instead. But you cannot survive without the Council. General Krexthor buzzed angrily. Human space is limited. Your technology is primitive. You need our resources. Jiwan smiled, an expression that made several aliens shift uncomfortably. You assume our technology is primitive because we allowed you to think so. You assume our space is limited because we only showed you what we wanted you to see. You assume we need your resources because we traded for them instead of simply taking them. The chamber erupted in confused voices. What do you mean? Demanded the Zerillian representative. I mean that humanity has been preparing for this day for over a century. We learned early that the Council would never see us as equals, so we planned for independence. Taeyang Choi's voice came over the Council's communication system. Council vessels are attempting to intercept human ships in the Outer Rim. They should know that all human vessels are now under military protection. On the main display, a tactical map appeared. 3 Council ships were pursuing a human cargo convoy. As they watched, the defenseless human ships suddenly sprouted weapon arrays and defensive barriers. The Council ships found themselves outgunned and outmaneuvered by vessels they had thought were simple cargo haulers. Impossible, whispered General Krexthor. We scanned those ships. They showed only cargo holds and life support. You saw what our stealth systems wanted you to see, Jiwan replied. Every human vessel has been equipped with defensive capabilities for decades. We simply hid them from your sensors. The Altarian speaker stood on his forearms, towering over the table. Even if this is true, you cannot hide your home systems forever. We will find them. We will force you to return. Jiwan's smile grew wider. You're welcome to try. Meanwhile, deep in space, Wanbin Seo finished his final task as chief engineer of the Galactic Communication Hub. His alien colleague, a 6-armed Vorthak named Flixtar, watched nervously as Wanbin shut down critical systems. You cannot do this, Flixtar buzzed. The entire network will collapse. Yes, Wanbin said simply. It will. Did you think it maintained itself? But we helped build it. We provided materials and funding. Wanbin looked at the insect-like creature with pity. You provided money. We provided the science, the engineering, and the maintenance. This network exists because human minds designed every circuit and human hands built every component. He activated his personal communicator. This is Engineer CO. Hub Station 7 is shutting down. All human personnel are clear. As Wanbin's transport ship pulled away from the station, he watched the lights go out section by section. The Galactic communication network had just lost its most important hub. In laboratories across the galaxy, human xenobiologists like Yuna Zhang gathered their research and prepared to leave. Their alien colleagues begged them to stay. "Please," said Dr. Kethmon, a reptilian scientist from the Draknari Republic. "We are so close to curing the red fever. Your research is vital." Yuna looked sadly at her former partner. They had worked together for 8 years, and she genuinely liked the earnest reptile. "The cure was completed 3 months ago," she admitted. "I was waiting for council approval to announce it." "What? But why didn't you tell me?" "Because 97% of the breakthrough came from human research. I was trying to find a way to give your people credit for the discovery. I thought it would help relations between our species." Dr. Kethmon stared at her in shock. You deliberately hid your success to make us look better?" "Humans have been doing that for decades. We thought it was better to be underestimated than feared. We were wrong." Yuna sealed the last of her research files and prepared to transmit them to human space. The cure for red fever would be available to humanity's allies, but the Council was no longer among them. As reports flooded in from across the galaxy, the scope of the crisis became clear. Human withdrawal wasn't just removing some trade partners, it was unraveling the basic infrastructure of galactic civilization. And the worst part was, it had only been 3 days. Speaker Zeth Moran collapsed into his chair, his blue skin now pale with stress. Around him, other council members argued and blamed each other, but he barely heard them. They had treated humanity like servants for 150 years. Now they were learning what servants actually did. Everything. Wanbin Seo sat in his small apartment on Nexus Prime, watching the news reports with grim satisfaction. The Galactic Communication Network had been failing for 2 weeks now. Entire sectors were cut off from each other. Trade had ground to a halt. Emergency services couldn't coordinate rescue operations. His doorbell chimed. Wanbin opened it to find his former colleague, Teklar, a tall blue Altarian engineer. The alien's forearms hung limply at his sides, and his usually proud posture was bent with exhaustion. "Please," Teklar said quietly. "We need your help." Wanbin gestured for him to enter. They had worked together for 7 years. Despite everything, he still considered Teklar a friend. "The quantum relays in sectors 12 through 18 are completely down," Teklar continued. 14 billion people are cut off from the rest of the galaxy. We've tried everything, but we can't fix them." "Of course you can't," Wanbin said, pouring his guest some water. "You don't understand how they work. But we helped design them. We provided the theoretical framework." Wanbin shook his head sadly. "You provided some basic theories about quantum entanglement. We turned those theories into working technology. There's a difference between knowing something should be possible and actually making it work." He activated his personal computer and showed Teklar a simplified diagram of a quantum relay. Even simplified, the design was incredibly complex. "See, this resonance chamber? You thought it was just a power source. It's actually processing quantum probability matrices in real time. And this section you called data storage? It's a dimensional fold that exists partially outside normal space." Teklar stared at the diagram in confusion. I don't understand half of these components." "No alien species does. Humans built every relay from scratch, using principles we discovered independently. We let you think you were partners because it seemed more diplomatic." The Altarian engineer slumped in his chair. "How long before the entire network collapses? Without maintenance? 2 more weeks, maybe 3. And you won't help us?" Wanbin looked at his friend with genuine regret. "I would if I could, but I don't have access to human technical databases anymore. When we withdrew, all connections to Our systems were severed. Meanwhile, in a medical research facility on the planet Kerrigan, Yuna Zhang's former research partner Dr. Kethman worked frantically to understand the abandoned human research. Around him, other alien scientists struggled with equipment they had never truly understood. "Dr. Kethman," his assistant called out, "the gene sequencer is malfunctioning again." The reptilian scientist hissed in frustration. This was the 5th breakdown this week. When Yuna had been here, the complex machines ran perfectly. Now they failed constantly. "Have you tried the standard repair protocols?" he asked. "Yes, sir. The machine says the error is in the quantum matrix alignment, but I don't know what that means." Dr. Kethman didn't know either. The gene sequencer was human technology, far more advanced than anything his people could build. They had used it for years without understanding how it actually worked. He activated his computer and tried to access the technical manuals. Every file was encrypted with human security codes he couldn't break. On his desk, a communication device blinked with incoming emergency messages. The red fever outbreak on Thanos Prime was spreading. 3 million people were infected and the death toll was rising rapidly. The cure existed. Yuna had admitted as much, but it was locked away in human databases they couldn't access. Dr. Kethman made a decision. He activated his personal communicator and sent a message to the last known human communication relay. "This is Dr. Kethman of the Draknari Medical Institute. I am requesting humanitarian assistance for the red fever outbreak. Please respond." The reply came 6 hours later. A human woman appeared on his screen. Someone he didn't recognize. "This is Dr. Gina Park of the Human Medical Corps. We received your message, Dr. Park. Please, 3 million people are dying. We need the red fever cure." "The cure is available," Dr. Park said calmly. However, the Draknari Republic voted to support the forcible seizure of human assets. Medical assistance is no longer available to council species. But these are innocent people. They didn't vote for anything. Neither did the human miners who would have died in your military adventure. Neither did the human families who would have lost their homes when you stole our colonies. Dr. Kethman felt desperate. "What do you want? What can we give you?" "Nothing. The Human Federation no longer has any relationship with council species." The transmission ended, leaving Dr. Kethman staring at a blank screen. On the Mollusk Federation homeworld of Nest Prime, food riots had begun. The massive underground cities that housed billions of insect-like creatures faced starvation as supply ships stopped arriving. Queen Mother Zixandra stood in her command chamber, watching reports of chaos throughout her territory. Her advisors buzzed around her in panic. "Your Majesty," one of them reported, "the human cargo ships that supplied sectors 4 through 7 have not arrived. Food reserves are critically low." "What about our own transport capacity?" the Queen Mother asked. "Insufficient. We relied on human logistics networks for 80% of our food distribution. Without them, we cannot feed our population." Zixandra felt a chill run through her massive body. The Mollusk Federation had grown too fast, built too many cities, bred too many offspring. They had become dependent on imported food because their worlds couldn't support their numbers, and humans had carried that food for 50 years. "Contact the other transport companies," she ordered. "Hire every available ship." "We already tried, Your Majesty. The few non-human companies that exist are overwhelmed with requests. They're demanding payment rates 20 times higher than human companies charged." 20 times higher. The Federation couldn't afford that, especially not with their economy collapsing as trade networks failed. Zixandra realized with growing horror that her civilization faced extinction within months. In the Crystal Cities of the Christek Collective, the environmental systems that maintained perfect living conditions began failing one by one. The crystalline beings required precise temperature and humidity control to survive. Too much heat would crack their bodies. Too much moisture would cause fatal corrosion. Engineer Chantel floated through the corridors of Crystal City Prime, desperately trying to repair failing systems. The climate control network was incredibly complex, with thousands of interlocking components spread throughout the massive structures. Humans had designed and maintained these systems for over a century. Chantel and her team had learned to operate them, but they had never understood the underlying principles. Status report, she called to her assistant. Sectors 12 through 27 are experiencing temperature fluctuations. Humidity controls in the Eastern District are completely offline. The central processing unit is showing error messages we can't interpret. Chantel examined the error codes. They were written in human technical language that didn't translate properly into her species' mathematical concepts. Try running the backup systems, she ordered. We did. They failed after 6 hours. We think they were never meant to operate independently. As if to emphasize the point, warning alarms began sounding throughout the city. The temperature in Sector 15 had risen past safe levels. If they couldn't fix it soon, thousands of Christech citizens would begin dying. Back on Nexus Prime, the emergency council session had been running for 16 hours straight. Delegates were exhausted, angry, and increasingly desperate. The situation is unsustainable, reported the Xerillian representative. Our shipping industry has collapsed completely. We cannot move cargo between our worlds without human logistics support. My people are facing starvation, added Queen Mother Zixandra via emergency transmission. Billions will die within weeks. Speaker Zethmoran looked around the chamber at faces filled with fear and anger. The proud alliance that had ruled the galaxy for centuries was falling apart in real time. What are our military options? He asked General Krexthor. The massive insect shifted uncomfortably. Limited. We sent 3 fleets to intercept human ships and force them to return. All 3 fleets disappeared. Disappeared? No wreckage, no distress signals, nothing. They entered human space and simply vanished. A chill fell over the chamber. How could entire fleets just disappear? Furthermore, the general continued, our intelligence services cannot locate the human home systems. The coordinates we have on file all lead to empty space or automated decoy stations. Ambassador Jiwan, who had remained silent throughout most of the session, finally stood. You're beginning to understand, she said quietly. For 150 years, you treated humanity as your servants. You assumed we were weak because we didn't fight back. You assumed we were primitive because we let you think so. You assumed we needed you because we traded with you instead of conquering you. But you do need us, shouted the Christech representative. You need our raw materials, our manufacturing capacity. Jiwan smiled coldly. We needed those things when we were limited to the space you allowed us to occupy. We found other sources long ago. She activated a small device, and a holographic star map appeared above the council table. It showed the galaxy as they knew it, but with vast regions marked in human blue. This is the space humanity actually controls. 6 months had passed since the human withdrawal began, and galactic civilization was collapsing faster than anyone had imagined possible. On Nexus Prime, emergency sirens wailed constantly as basic services failed throughout the massive city. Speaker Zethmoran stood in his private office looking out at a skyline that grew darker each day. Power failures were becoming routine as human-maintained energy distribution systems broke down. His forearms trembled with exhaustion and stress. Sir, his aide announced, the Emergency War Council is ready. The War Council was a desperate measure, an alliance between species that had been enemies for centuries. The Vorthak hegemony, the Altarian Empire, the Mollusk Federation, even the proud Christek Collective had joined together with one goal: find humanity and force them back into servitude. In the council chamber, the assembled leaders looked haggard and desperate. Queen Mother Zixandra appeared via hologram, too weak to travel as her people starved. The Christek representative, Engineer Chantel, flickered with the pale light of failing crystal cities. Report, Zethmoran ordered General Krexthor. The massive insect clicked his mandibles nervously. We have launched 12 exploration fleets into the deep dark regions. 7 have returned with no findings. 5 have, he paused, disappeared. Completely. Define disappeared, demanded Admiral Vexterra of the Xerillian Navy. No wreckage, no distress signals, no survivors. They enter the dark and simply cease to exist. A chill fell over the room. How could entire fleets just vanish? We did capture one human transport, General Krexthor continued. The prisoner has been interrogated. The main screen activated, showing a recording of the interrogation. Geonwoo Lim, a former human trader, sat calmly in a detention cell while Vorthak interrogators tried to break him. Where are the human colonies? Buzzed the lead interrogator. What are the coordinates to Earth? Geonwoo smiled sadly. Earth is gone, evacuated 70 years ago. The whole system is automated now. Impossible. Our intelligence shows constant traffic to the Sol system. Supply runs to the maintenance stations. No one lives there anymore. The interrogator's carapace clicked with frustration. Then where do humans live now? In the deep dark. In places you can't imagine and wouldn't survive. Give us coordinates. Jianwu's expression grew cold. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't. Deep dark navigation requires human neural implants. Your brains can't process the quantum mathematics. The recording ended. In the council chamber, the assembled leaders sat in stunned silence. Neural implants? Whispered Dr. Kethmon, who had joined the session as a medical advisor. That's impossible. We've examined human biology for decades. There are no implants. Admiral, Vextara consulted her datapad. Our intelligence agrees. Detailed medical scans show normal human brain structure. Zethmoran felt a growing unease. Play the rest of the interrogation. The recording resumed. The Vorthak interrogator had brought in electrical torture devices. Last chance, human. Tell us how to find your people. Jianwu laughed bitterly. You still don't understand. You think this is about hiding from you. We're not hiding, we're protecting you. Protecting us from what? From seeing what we've become. The interrogator activated the torture device. Electrical current flowed through Jianwu's body, but instead of screaming, he closed his eyes and seemed to concentrate. The electricity suddenly stopped, and the torture device sparked and died. That's not possible, the interrogator buzzed, in confusion. Jianwu opened his eyes, which now glowed with a faint blue light. You have no idea what's possible. The recording abruptly ended in static. The prisoner died 20 minutes later, General Krexthor reported. Medical examination showed massive neural activity, but we couldn't determine the cause of death. Engineer Ye. Chantel leaned forward, her crystalline body reflecting the chamber lights. Show us the medical data. The screen displayed brain scan results. Jianwu's neural activity during his final minutes was unlike anything they had seen before. His brain had been processing information at rates that should have been physically impossible. This is consistent with quantum neural enhancement, Dr. Kethmon said quietly. Theoretical technology that allows direct interface with quantum computing systems. You said it was theoretical, Admiral Vextara pointed out. I said it was theoretical for us. Apparently, humans made it real. Zethmoran felt sick. Are you saying that all humans have been enhanced? It would explain many things. Their ability to understand and maintain our technology. Their success at interspecies diplomacy. Their unnaturally long lifespans. The leaders exchanged worried glances. Humans lived nearly twice as long as most species, but everyone had assumed it was natural biology. Sir, General Krexthor's aide interrupted. We have a new report from the Deep Dark Expedition. A tired-looking Altarian naval officer appeared on screen. Captain Rexthor commanded one of their most advanced exploration vessels. We found something, he reported. Grid reference 347 Delta. It's unprecedented. The screen showed long-range sensor data. In the empty void between star systems, the sensors detected a massive structure, larger than most planets. What are we looking at? Zethmoran asked. We're not sure. It doesn't appear on any previous scans of this region. It's like it just appeared overnight. Investigate and report back. Sir, we've been trying to approach for 6 hours. Our navigation systems malfunction when we get within 10,000 kilometers. It's like space itself becomes unstable. As they watched, the sensor readings flickered and changed. The massive structure seemed to shift and bend in ways that violated basic physics. Captain, retreat to a safe distance, and the transmission cut to static. 12 hours later, a single escape pod was found drifting in normal space. The only survivor was Commander Yal Seth, the ship's science officer. His condition was disturbing. The Altarian officer sat in the medical bay, staring blankly at the wall. His blue skin had turned pale, and he responded to questions with difficulty. "What happened to your ship?" Dr. Kethmon asked gently. "Gone," Yalseth whispered. "Pulled into something that wasn't space." "Can you be more specific?" "The structure. It was alive. It watched us. It spoke without words." Dr. Kethmon exchanged glances with the medical team. The officer's brain scans showed patterns consistent with severe psychological trauma. What did it say? That we weren't ready. That we should go home and forget what we saw. Yalseth's eyes focused on the doctor. "It let me live to deliver a message." "What message?" "The dark has teeth now. The dark has children. And the children are coming home." In another part of the galaxy, Ariam Kwan sat in a council detention facility, facing her interrogators with calm defiance. As a human historian, she had been captured while evacuating ancient archives from a joint research station. "You will tell us about human history," demanded interrogator Zeknar, a tall reptilian Draknari. "We want to understand how your species developed this technology." Ariam smiled sadly. "You really don't know, do you? You never bothered to study us beyond what was useful. Explain." "Humans weren't kept as a service species by accident. It was deliberate policy. For 150 years, the Council systematically suppressed human development." The interrogators' scales shifted color, a sign of confusion. "That makes no sense. Why would we limit a useful ally?" "Because we were too useful. Early contact reports showed that humans learned too quickly, adapted too easily. You were afraid of what we might become." Ariam activated a hidden data pad and projected holographic documents into the air. Council Secret Resolution 47. Human technological development must be monitored and limited to prevent potential threat to established galactic order. Resolution 3156. Human military capabilities should be restricted through exclusive trade agreements and resource dependencies. Resolution 4892. Human expansion must be confined to designated sectors to maintain demographic control. The interrogator stared at the documents in shock. "These are classified council records. How do you have them?" "Because we've been watching you as carefully as you've been watching us. The difference is we learned what you were really planning." She projected another document. "This is from 80 years ago. A council scientific assessment of human potential. It concluded that if humans were allowed unrestricted development, we would surpass all other species within 3 generations. Impossible. The report recommended keeping us useful but dependent. Give us complex tasks that made us valuable, but never let us develop independently. Keep us busy serving your needs so we wouldn't focus on our own advancement." Ariam's expression grew cold. "But you made one critical error. You assumed that service and development were mutually exclusive. You thought that by keeping us busy, you were keeping us limited." "What do you mean?" "Every task you gave us, every problem you asked us to solve, every system you wanted us to maintain, we used as a learning experience. We didn't just fix your quantum networks. We studied quantum mechanics until we understood it better than you did. We didn't just process your medical supplies. We advanced biochemistry beyond your comprehension." The interrogator leaned back, beginning to understand the scope of what had happened. "You used us as a forced education system," Ariam continued. 150 years of exposure to the problems and technologies of 12 different species. 1 year had passed since humanity's withdrawal began. Galactic civilization lay in ruins. Half the council worlds faced starvation, plague, or system failures. The communication networks had collapsed completely. Trade had ended. The proud alliance that had ruled the galaxy for millennia was dying. Then the ship appeared. It materialized without warning in Nexus Prime's orbital space. Not emerging from hyperspace, but simply coming into existence as if space itself had been folded to place. There. The vessel was unlike anything the remaining Council forces had ever seen. Its hull seemed to shift between solid matter and energy, and strange symbols flowed across its surface like living text. On the bridge of the Altarian defense station, Admiral Kextarn stared at his sensors in confusion. "Sir," his science officer reported, "the ship it's not following any known physics. Our scanners can't get a solid reading. Is it human?" "Unknown. The design is completely alien, but we're detecting human life signs aboard." A communication request came through on frequencies that shouldn't have been possible to generate. "This is Jiho Shin of the Human Federation, requesting permission to address the Galactic Council." Admiral Kextarn was so shocked he nearly dropped his communicator. "Human Federation? You still exist?" "We exist. We have terms to discuss." Within hours, an emergency council session was called. The remaining leaders gathered in the Great Chamber, though many attended via hologram, too weak or too distant to travel. Speaker Zethmoran looked aged and broken, his once proud blue skin now pale and wrinkled. The chamber doors opened, and Jiho Shin walked in. He looked human, but wrong somehow. His movements were too fluid, his eyes held a faint glow, and the air around him seemed to shimmer with barely contained energy. The council members instinctively drew back as he approached the central podium. "Honored Council," Jiho said, his voice carrying clearly despite the chamber's poor acoustics. "I bring greetings from the Human Federation and an offer of renewed relations." "Renewed relations?" Queen Mother Zixandra's weak voice came through her hologram. "My people are dying. Billions have starved because of your abandonment." Jiho turned toward her image with expression of mild sympathy. "Your people are dying because your civilization was built on slave labor. When the slaves left, the civilization collapsed." "We never enslaved humans," protested Engineer Chantel. "You were council members, you were partners, were we?" Jiho activated a device and holographic documents filled the air above the chamber. Council Resolution 2847. Limit human technological development. Resolution 3156. Restrict human military capabilities. Resolution 4892. Confine human expansion. The council members stared at their own secret documents in shock and growing horror. "For 150 years, you systematically suppressed our growth while benefiting from our labor. You kept us useful, but dependent, valuable, but controlled. That is slavery with extra steps." General Krexthor's mandibles clicked angrily. "Even if that's true, you cannot simply abandon your obligations. Billions of innocent people have suffered." Jiho's expression hardened. "Innocent? Your species voted to steal our mining colonies and use our people as cannon fodder for your war. Every council member supported the forced seizure of human assets. But the civilian populations had no say in those decisions. Neither did the human civilians who would have died in your wars. Neither did the human families who would have been displaced by your theft. You showed no concern for innocent humans." Speaker Zethmoran struggled to his feet. "What do you want? Name your price, we'll pay anything." "Will you?" Jiho smiled coldly. "Then let me explain our terms." The chamber fell silent. First, complete autonomy for all human space. No council authority. No council oversight, no council interference of any kind. "Agreed," Zethmoran said immediately. Second, reparations for 150 years of suppressed development. We calculate the value at approximately 40% of the total economic output of all council worlds. Several council members gasped. That amount would bankrupt their civilizations. "Impossible," shouted Admiral Vextara. "We don't have those resources." "Then you'll work off the debt." Which brings us to Term 3. Recognition of human territorial sovereignty over all systems we currently occupy. Jiho activated another device, and the holographic star map appeared again. But this time the human territory was even larger. Vast swaths of the galaxy marked in blue. "This is 80% of known space," Engineer Chantel protested. "This is the space we have settled and developed while you thought we were hiding in empty systems." We've been very busy in the deep, dark. General Krexthor leaned forward menacingly. And if we refuse these terms? Jiho's smile grew wider, and for a moment his human appearance flickered, revealing something far more complex underneath. Then you'll learn what humans are truly capable of. He raised his hand, and every piece of technology in the chamber began to malfunction. Lights flickered, communicators sparked, and life support systems stuttered. The council members realized with growing terror that Jiho was somehow controlling their technology with his mind. You see, he continued conversationally, while you were busy ruling your little empire, we were becoming something new. Something you forced us to become through your oppression. The malfunctioning technology stabilized, but the message was clear. This is impossible, Dr. Kethmon whispered. Humans are baseline biological entities. We've studied your species for decades. You studied the humans we allowed you to study. Our real development happened in the deep dark, where your scanners couldn't reach and your spies couldn't follow. Jiho gestured and new images appeared. Vast structures floating in the void between stars, cities that existed partially outside normal space, ships that moved by folding reality around them. This is what you created through your suppression. By forcing us to serve you, you gave us access to all your technologies, all your sciences, all your secrets. By confining us to worthless space, you forced us to master physics you can't even comprehend. You used our oppression against us, Zeth Moran said with dawning understanding. We used your arrogance against you. You thought you were keeping us weak. Instead, you were giving us the greatest education in galactic history. Queen Mother Zixandra's image flickered as her communication systems failed. Please, she begged. My people are dying. Whatever we did wrong, punish us, not them. Jiho studied her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried genuine sadness. Your people are dying because you built an unsustainable civilization based on exploitation. We didn't cause that. We just stopped enabling it. But you could save them. Yes, we could. The question is, should we? He looked around the chamber at the desperate faces of former oppressors. Here's what will happen. The Human Federation will resume limited trade with Council worlds. Medical supplies for plague-stricken populations, food shipments for starving colonies, basic infrastructure support to prevent total collapse. Relief flooded the faces of the council members. However, Jiho continued, this assistance comes with conditions. First, complete acceptance of our territorial claims. Second, regular reparation payments as agreed. Third, non-interference with human activities. And if we violate these conditions? General Krexthor asked. Jiho's expression grew cold. Then you'll discover what happens when humanity stops being merciful. As if to demonstrate the point, the lights in the chamber went out completely. In the darkness, the council members could see Jiho's form glowing with internal energy, no longer looking human at all. You see, the irony is delicious. His voice echoed from everywhere at once. You spent 150 years trying to keep us weak and dependent. Instead, you made us strong and independent. You tried to limit our development. Instead, you accelerated it beyond your wildest fears. Lights returned and Jiho looked human again, but the message was clear. We no longer need your resources, your technology, or your approval. We offer mercy because we choose to, not because we must. Speaker Zeth Moran collapsed back into his chair. What are you now? What have you become? We've become what you forced us to become. We've transcended the limitations you tried to impose. We are no longer the species you knew. Jiho began walking toward the chamber exit. You have 24 hours to decide. Accept our terms and receive our limited assistance. Refuse and face the consequences of your choices alone. Wait, called Dr. Kethmon. The other species, the ones who treated humans with respect. What about them? Jiho paused and looked back with the first genuine smile anyone had seen from him. The Zephyrians who always thanked us for their medicines. The Kepler Mining Collective who treated human workers as equals. The Free Traders Union who dealt with us honestly. He nodded. They've already been invited to join our new civilization. Join. You how? In the deep dark, where we're building something better than this failing empire. A true partnership between species, based on mutual respect rather than exploitation. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. Humanity wasn't just withdrawing. They were building a replacement for galactic civilization, and they were choosing who to invite. The old galaxy is dying, Jiho said simply. We're building a new one. You can join us if you prove you've changed, or you can stay here and face extinction. The choice is yours.